check, check. Mic check. Dang, son, where'd you get that? Hello. Is that better? Is this better? Can you see me? Can you hear me? All right. What you're looking at right now is just what is this? Like week 2, something like that. Let's pause this. 30 seconds. Let's get on YouTube, and I'm going to determine how long it's been since I did any of this based on when my last upload was, which is 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago, programming update. No views. What we're looking at today is a landing page and some landing page CSS. It's a landing page for a lawn care and landscaping company. I'm basing this off of the Udemy course Zero to Mastery by Andrie, I don't want to mess his name up, Naegoie? Where's his name at? La da 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 da. Andrie is the instructor. Naegoie. We'll use this. Don't mind all of my crazy bookmarks. Those are bookmarks over the period of a long period of time. I think I went over this last time. Andrie Naegoie. I really wish I knew how to pronounce his name. I'm sure he said it in one of the courses, and I've just not paid attention. But as you can see in the about, he's an instructor of development courses on Udemy. I'm not sure of his qualifications outside of that. He may be a loser, and I don't know. I don't think he is. Something that, wow, I've never really read all of this, but he's got a lot of stuff right here. Something that we've been going through for this half, which I kind of slowed down in my work on this course. I probably have only done a week and a half of work over the past 3 weeks. So I'm really shortchanging myself. I got a haircut in that short period of time, however. So that's something notable. In the background, you can see I'm watching something on YouTube. Hey, it's all good. So this section 8 is Bootstrap 4 templates and building your startup landing page. So I've gone through CSS, advanced CSS, HTML5, simple stuff like history of the web, how the internet works, all that fun stuff. Next thing coming up is going to be CSS grid plus CSS layout. And then after that, we're jumping into JavaScript. My buddy Brandon has told me several times that I just need to get over this section. I need to move on from it, skip it, go back to it later, because the most important thing is going to be JavaScript. I agree with him. However, I'm a completionist, and I've got to do it in order. If I don't do it in order, I feel wrong. So this is the landscaping website I've got so far. Super basic. I got a button that I can click. That's pretty cool. That's neat. That's awesome. I figured out how to put the best lawn care landscaping for your yard in town in text, uppercase, and you might not be able to see it, but I've got this thing, which we're calling HR, whatever that meant. I don't even remember a lot of the things that he tells me to do. I'm just following along. This website is for a landing page for a lawn care company that I have started myself, Lawn Level Up. You can see up here, or Level Up Lawn. I need to fix that. I don't even have it correct. Boom. Look at that. Oh my gosh. At one point, I did have a neat little favicon. Let's see if I can find it. I know I put it in my email. As you can see, I put my mic on a boom, a little boom arm. I didn't have it on a boom arm, and it was getting in the way of my Modern Warfare gaming. So I had to get it off. Um, Notes for this morning. I've gone through and I kind of explained this in one of my videos. That what's the motivation for trying to learn this stuff? Um, if you're working full time like I am, part of it's kind of a paradox. So you're working part time in order to learn this stuff so that you can get into a better position in life, career wise, financially. Um, the reality is that when you get on Indeed.com or any other website where you're looking for jobs, you see these insane advertised salaries. I don't know if it's real. I think it is, and so I'm pursuing it. Part of why I'm pursuing it as well is because I believe that I'll be able to get into a lot more remote work. Maybe if I freelance or I consult in the upcoming years, and it would be something that I could do easily to fit within my life schedule. I was watching a video the other day of this woman who lives out in the wilderness. She lives in a tiny home. She has her own garden that allows her to be almost self-sustainable. Um, and something that she said that really connected with me is I'm able to spend more time doing things that I love rather than spending time pursuing a job to support myself. So she's kind of in a situation where her self sustainability is brought about via permaculture. So she's working with her environment to grow some vegetables that she lives off of, and not some. She's got a very expansive garden. Um, but she also has a composting toilet, and she collects water throughout the year. And so she's found a way to break down her life in such a way that she can pursue uh, the good things in life that she's determined for herself, which is freedom of time to be able to pursue things like hiking, hanging out with her dog, enjoying nature, being a naturalist. Um, and so I'd like to do the same thing. I'd like to move into a space where, hey, if I don't need to get up at 8 o'clock this morning, I don't have to. I can put myself in a situation where I can work hard for first 20 hours of the week, and the remaining hours of the week I can just cruise and chill. Or I can work the entire damn week and make some bank. Um, Whether or not the reality is that's not going to happen within the first 6 months of this journey. Um, that's the reason why. Now, the paradox: I work full time. I get tired. I get exhausted. I get frustrated. This morning, for instance, um, you know, I work in a setting where I have to be in front of judges and attorneys and lawyers very often. Um, and this morning, I had missed a court date. However, yeah, I got chewed out by a senior officer. I got chewed out by, a senior officer. And I hit back with some pretty rude comments myself. And, I was supposed to be there and I'd overslept. And turns out I completely forgotten that they had rescheduled this anyways. And that's why I was off my mind because I didn't have anything to actually think about. And so I'm in a position now where I am so tied to a desk and to a phone and to a computer. I want to move away from that. And specifically, I want to move away from the amount of work that I have to do uh, that is not commiserate with the amount of pay I get. So I'm trying to put myself into a better position financially through a better better career. Now, maybe I'm fooling myself. Maybe it's grass is greener on the other side. Maybe people are thinking, man, I'd love to be in your position. Well, hey, take my job. I'm moving on. So all that to say, this website that I'm making right now, it's kind of twofold. So I'm learning how to do web development stuff, full stack, all that fun stuff. But I'm also working on this website, which is for a lawn care company that I'd also like to do. Just landscaping, hardscaping on the side, just something that's enjoyable. I'd like to focus on helping people make ribbon driveways as well as greenhouses. I love nature. I love the environment. I love permaculture and working with your environment, not against it. So part of that is trying to promote ribbon driveways and more pervious rather than impervious structures on your properties. So what am I doing today? What I'm gonna do is I'll just, edit this video as I see fit. And we're just going to work through this lesson, maybe the rest of the section, whatever I can get through. Got an email from work. Oh, when do you want to go? These questions, and I can turn everything in, blah, blah, blah. All right. Fires at work. People are looking for me to help fix
All right, everybody, let's keep going. What else can we do to this page to make it look more like this one? Well, I want the text.
And I am going to cut most of Andre's course audio and video out because I don't want to get in trouble with him. I doubt he would ever see my website or this video, but I want to be fair to him. Sure, I'm going to office today.
Uppercase here. You can see over here that this is all in capitals, this is not. I could change this if I want to capital letters. I can also add a style
made a text uppercase
to make everything uppercase. But there's also another useful one that comes with Bootstrap. I can actually add a class and use a class in Bootstrap called text-uppercase.
Good.
If I save this and refresh, look at that. Everything is uppercase. That's awesome. Now, what about the button? Let's add some Bootstrap styling to the buttons. Again, let's say you don't know how to add Bootstrap styles or you don't know the classes. We can always go to the documentation and search buttons. There we go. We see that we have some button classes that we can use. In our case, let's use this one, button primary. So I'm going to copy, come back, and with this button, let's give it a class of button primary. If I save and refresh, hey, look at that. we have a Bootstrap button already.
Oh, look at that
That's
Bootstrap
really,
button.
really cool.
I
But
don't know why
you know
his
what?
doesn't have this
I
raised
want to have a different color,
effect.
right? I want the button to look more like this, something nicer.
Yeah.
So we can add our own custom CSS. Let's call this class button XL for extra large button. And this isn't a Bootstrap class. If I save this and refresh, nothing will happen. Instead, we can create this button XL
This is also
right
round.
here in our own style sheet. So let's say button or dot button XL
Yeah.
is going to be, let's make this a little bit bigger, is going to have padding of, let's say, 1 REM on the sides and 2 REM top bottom. If I refresh this, that's better. That's a lot bigger. So we have an extra large button. Now we can add sizes or we can add different properties here. But since we named this class button XL, we should just leave it the way it's describing things. That is to make the button larger. So instead, let's just modify the existing classes that we have,
Button primary.
which is the button and button primary. So if I go back here, we can say that the button class will have a font weight of, let's say, 700 and a border radius. That is to make the edges more circular, and we'll give it 300 pixels.
So
If I save this and refresh,
there it is.
that's a lot better. I like that. And I want this capitalized as well, and I could use the text uppercase class as we've seen before, or I can just in here say text transform and just say uppercase.
Cool.
So just use a CSS class. If I refresh, that looks really, really nice. Now let's keep going here. Let's add another class here, which is button primary. So we're just adding on to the Bootstrap styles that we have. And we'll just give it a background color of, what should we do? Well, if we go back to this page, again, we inspect right here by hovering, and we click. We see over here as we scroll down what color we're using over here. Let's see.
I want to change it.
Where's the color? Let's see. Oh, there it is right here. So I'm going to copy
Dude.
the color, add it here. If I hit save and refresh, hey, look at that. That's really, really nice. But one thing you'll notice is that the border over here, if we scroll or zoom in, you see that the border has a bit of blue, and that's default for the Bootstrap theme. So instead, let's add a border as well. So call it border color and give it the same color. If I refresh, that's much better. Although now we're hovering and it's turning blue. That's okay, but I don't like it. Let's make it hover so it's still orange, but maybe a little bit darker orange. So what can we do here? Again, we've seen this before. We can just say button primary colon hover. And in here, we can just add background color to be something a little bit different than this. In this case, we're going to use a color that is EE4B08. Don't worry, I didn't memorize this. This is just something that, well, I knew that I used when I made this website first. So don't worry, you never need to memorize hex colors. Next, we'll do the same for the border color. So once again, we'll make the border color the same as we have here. That's great. I also want to increase the border width, actually, to just make it a little bit bigger when we hover over it. So let's just give it an extra 4 pixels, and let's save. If I refresh and hover, hey, look at that. That's awesome.
Cool.
So that's looking really, really nice. So we have the button. It's looking pretty good. We have our header. That's looking pretty great as well. The other thing I want to add is this little line here. just to give it a little extra flair to the page. And we can use something called an HR here, or a horizontal line.
A
So the
horizontal line.
HR tag, which we can just put in between, so let's say HR,
Yeah.
is a horizontal line. So if I refresh here, I don't know if you can see it, well, because it's dark, but let's add some styling to it. So
do it.
let's say in here that we want the HRs on our page to have a border color of the orange that we've had before, which is this one over here. So let's say border color is this. If I save and refresh,
Boom.
all right, look at that.
Right
There's our little line. It's a little thin though, so let's add a bit of sizing. So I'll say border width and give it, let's say 3 pixels. And if I refresh, all right, that's getting bigger, that's good. But I don't want this to be the entire page. I only want it a little bit, just like we see it here. So we have a CSS property here that we can use called max width, which, as the name suggests, tells us exactly what's the maximum width of this thing.
Of course.
In our case, let's say 65 pixels. So if I save this and refresh, that's much better. All right, we're making progress here, but there's an issue, right? Right now we have the content that we want, but it's all over the place. It's kind of ugly, isn't it? We want everything centered, maybe around this laptop over here. And this is where Bootstrap really shines. So let's figure that out in the next video.
You're just going to leave me on, Andre?
Topics like in CSS grid and
Okay, I want to play around with the colors real quick. What's best here? Maybe a light blue? Let's see. No. Darker. No. No. It's just so weird. I don't know how to... What's the best colors? All right. Color contrast, baby. I could probably do like a banner behind it though. Let's see. Brown. Can I find a brown color? Maybe a dark brown. Is there anything? Is there a font box? Font weight variant feature display stretch. Hello, CSS Almanac. Can you tell me what I can do? Block. Can I just do a background color? Let's try it. Yeah. Can it not be brown? Can't I do RGB with like... I think I have to add RGB before it. Not sure that's even anything. Oh, yeah, it is. I'm not sure that's a color though. I don't think it is. Let me just copy this, throw it in there, and then throw a 0.5 at the end. I'd like that background size. Background contain cover. Am I even doing the right thing? Hmm. See what happens there. Nothing. Nothing happened. Huh. That just broke it. It just said nope. But it's probably better if I just toss that black there. Black or white? I kind of like black better. I could also just change this to like gray or white. Yeah, okay, cool. It's enough dilly-dallying. Let's change the color of the button to white. You're also gonna be white. I thought I just heard something. Hello? Nothing. But I could hear something. That works with me. All right. Next. See, now you can see why it's taken me so long.
And actually talk.
Because I get distracted.
All right, it's time to talk about layout. Now, we already learned how layout works in Bootstrap, and we talked about why Bootstrap became so popular. Now, don't worry, later on in the course, I'm going to introduce you to topics like CSS Grid and actually talk about really easy ways to do layout on a page. But for now, we want us to use Bootstrap because that's what we learned. And I'm warning you, this is going to seem very overwhelming. I want to show you how Bootstrap does layout because down the road, when I introduce you to things like CSS Grid, you're going to see how much easier we have it now than we had maybe a few years ago. But I still want you to learn how layout is done in Bootstrap because you will encounter it throughout your career. Now, if you go to the layout section on the Bootstrap documentation, you see over here that it has some pretty good information. We can look at the grids, and we've already talked about how grid works with Bootstrap. Now, the first thing we want to do is to have a container and then maybe some rows that we can use columns on. So if we go back to our page and we open up the index.html file, the first thing I want to do around the body, and one thing I'll do with my Sublime text here is actually minimize the head tag here just so we can see a little bit. So I'm going to just click on this and look at that. It's minimized so I can just focus on the body. The first thing I want to do is say that I want to create a div with a class of container. Just like that. And then we'll close this right over here. So let's indent that properly. Let's save and refresh. All right, we have everything in a container. Next is that we want, ideally, all of these things to be in a row. So we want the H1, the HR, and the button to just be a row, one row that we have that is in the center of the page. So I'm just going to wrap this in a div and give it a class of row. So once again, let's close the div and indent this again. If I refresh, not much has changed. We may have lost the HR. We'll get back to that in a second, but we have a row now. So that if I inspect, let's say view, developer tools, and I click on this inspect, I see, well, these elements. If I go over here and let's open this up, not much has changed. We may have lost the HR. We'll get back to that in a second, but we have a row now. So that if I inspect, let's say view, developer tools, and I click on this inspect, I see, well, these elements. If I go over here and let's open this up, make this a little bit smaller, we see that we have the body, we have the div, which is the container, and then we have the row right here. All right, let me close this. Let's divide up these items into different sections. We have the header element that we can use, and this header element will contain the H1 over here. So we have the header, and one thing that we can use with Bootstrap is a class called text center. And text center, as you might guess, if I refresh, centers the text. So that's great. That's our header element.
Hold on, Andre. That's very convenient. So his header has a class which equals text center. Hasn't done anything yet.
And we also want to create another section here. Let's call it section. So this is a section element.
Oh, wait, his already did it. What did I
And then we'll close this right over here. So let's indent that properly. Let's save and refresh.
Oh, I don't have.
All right, we have everything in a container.
I have the row.
Next is that we want ideally all of these.
So what am I missing? Div class equals container. Yep. I've got it closed out. Yeah, I've got it closed out. I did that. Row, I've got that closed out. Header, I've got that closed out.
Next is that we want ideally all of these things to be in a row. So we want the H1, the HR, and the button to just be a row, one row that we have that is in the center of the page. So I'm just going to wrap this in a div and give it a class. So let's indent that properly.
I'm missing something. There's no errors, no problems.
Let's save and refresh.
What am I doing wrong here? H1 class, text uppercase, yep. HR, yep. Got that header class. Jumped ahead. I've got a container. Something to do with the div class container that I'm not doing correctly. What is it? Is it simply my browser? Sometimes my cache goes funky. Let's open up Opera. No, still doing it there. Let's go back here. Let's get rid of this. Did that fix it? No, I didn't. No,
All right, we have everything in a container.
guess we just keep
Next
going.
is that we want ideally all of these things to be in a row. So we want the H1, the HR, and the button to just be a row, one row that we have that is in the center of the page. So I'm just going to wrap this in a div and give it a class of row. So once again, let's close the div and indent this again. If I refresh, not much has changed. We may have lost the HR. We'll get back to that in a second. But we have a row now. So that if I inspect, let's say View, Developer Tools, and I click on this Inspect, I see, well, these elements. If I go over here and let's open this up, make this a little bit smaller, we see that we have the body, we have the div, which is the container, and then we have the row right here. All right, let me close this.
can't break it if it's not working. Why do you want to be the body? Oh. Am I missing something else?
Index.html file.
Let's open the head back up. Let's make sure we've got all the meta tags. Our style sheet. Is it the Bootstrap CSS? Maybe. I know I changed mine to where I'm not using 4.5. I can't imagine that that's what it is, but let's go through. Let's look in his files. Because he gives you files at the beginning. Landing page. Let's open up the index here. 4.31. I'm just going to copy that. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that had changed was just the... Huh. It must have something to do with the version. I'll have to look at that later. But it... Oh, yeah. Because even that's different. My button looks a lot different. Okay, that's weird. Let's fix my button real quick. Let's just see what happens if I do that. Okay, yeah. I kind of like that color. Button hover. Turns blue. Why does it turn blue? Is it because it's primary? Yeah. I think in Bootstrap. I saw something to do with them buttons. Yeah, primary. Let's just change it to danger, right? Let's see if that does anything. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna change my button. I always do this where on my headphones there's like a little Velcro strap that you can use to wrap your headphones up, and I try to stick it to my shirt. So I don't do that. Sometimes it doesn't work though. Depends on the shirt. Oh, well, look at this. I've got Velcro right there. Huh. Wow. Innovation. Would you look at that? Oh, that's a little close though. Let's pull her out. Wow. That is a whole new world. It's out of my way. Man, I feel good about that. Okay. What do I want the button to be? I'm just going to go with warning. Make it yellow. That's fun. Warning. Perfect. Beautiful. All right. That's all we're going to do. Let's move on with the lesson. Now that we know what was going on, the issue was right here. I had changed it to 4.5.0. 4.5 is the version. He's working from 4.3.1. So the issue was simply the version. So I just need to know that if I'm coming through here again, the documentation should be for 4.5 in the future. So there's probably just some action that's changed that I'm not aware of since I don't follow Bootstrap. Okay. Let's keep following
The first thing I want to do around the body, and one thing I'll do with my Sublime text here is actually minimize the head tag here just so we can see a little bit. So, all right, let me close this.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's divide up these items into different sections. We have the header element that we can use.
Okay. Yeah.
And this header element will contain the H1 over here. So we have the header. And one thing that we can use with Bootstrap is a class called text center. And text center, as you might guess, if I refresh, centers the text. So that's great. That's our header element. And we also want to create another section here. Let's call it section. So this is a section element. And this section element will also have the class text center. So if I refresh,
so his section is going to include the button and the line break. Hopefully it doesn't matter where it's at. Section class. Well, I don't know what it's trying to do. It's just hanging out. And it does matter because clearly my line break was right below it. This is minor. We're going to change the color of the line break to RG Bizzle. Nope, that was H1. Whoops. Okay, HR border color. There you go. Cool. All right, let's go back here to the HTML section. Class equals text center. It's got a section closed out. But it's
there you go. We got our HR horizontal line back. And, why isn't this centered?
That's right. That's the question.
Let's inspect this and find out. So
inspecting. Come on, inspect a gadget. Let's see here. Can he pop out? Okay. I don't want this to be. There you go. Section text center. 23.44 times 9. 72. Contrast. 6.4. Text align. Center important text block. All right, let's keep watching.
I can open Developer Tools by pressing Command Option I or Control Option I if you're on a Windows. And let's look at the elements. We have the container, we have the row,
Yep.
we have the header, and then we have the section.
Yep.
Now, we see over here that these ones aren't taking up the full width as we would want of the container. And we've seen this before with Bootstrap, right? We have to use this columns to tell it, hey, we want to contain or expand along the column. And because Bootstrap uses a 12 grid system, we can just say in here in that the header, we want the column 12 grid. And then for the section, we want the column 12 grid.
Gotcha.
So if I refresh, there you go, look at that. If I go over here, I see that we have the row, we have the header, and then we have the text, which as you can see contains the full amount of the container.
Didn't work.
In the blue.
Hold on. Column 12. Oh, okay. Because we include it. Sorry. And refresh. Oh, yeah. Looks good. Looks good.
That's looking a lot better.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
great. Now, if I close this,
Close it.
our text and button, it's still at the top. Ideally, it's in the middle of the image. How can we fix this?
How?
Now, this part is really, really tricky. If I actually search vertical alignment here,
Yeah.
you'll see that Bootstrap has some vertical alignment options, but these ones are using inline, inline block, inline table,
Okay.
which is actually not the recommended way.
We don't want that.
Now, the way we're going to do this
It's flex.
is we're going to use Flex. And this is a new feature with Bootstrap because they're using the Flexbox utilities that we've learned about, right? So if I go over here, you can see that I can activate the Flexbox system by using the dFlex class.
Okay.
So if I copy this and go to container and say dFlex, if I refresh, all right, nothing happened because we've just enabled Flexbox.
Okay.
But now we want to make sure that we can place things vertically in the center.
Okay.
And this, if we scroll down, is what we want right here. Align items. If we look over here, it's align items center.
Gotcha.
So if I copy this, which is this one over here,
Yep.
and we add align items center, if I refresh, this isn't working. And this is a little tricky.
Why not?
And I'm showing you this just to understand how to debug things.
Yeah.
So let's say you just did this and for some reason, you don't understand why this isn't working.
I don't.
On the documentation page, clearly, it
says it
shows
can't.
us that this should be working.
Yeah.
Well, we can inspect, so let's right-click, inspect, and
Inspector guy.
have a look at our HTML page. We have the container and then the body. Now you see here how everything is in the container. And as a matter of fact, if we look at the container, we're actually aligning items in the center because the container is actually not the full page. It's only the top part, right? It's just this part.
Yeah.
So here, the container is not fully covering the page. So what we need to do, just like we have in body, if we look at style here, you see how we have height of 100%?
Oh.
All we need to do is tell the container that, hey, I want you to span the entire height of the page.
Yeah.
And in Bootstrap, we can do that by saying height 100 instead of adding the CSS style. If I save this and refresh, look at that. If I hover you'll see that my container is now
Don't
the
look at it.
full.
H. You goofball. Look at it. It was supposed to change. Align items center. H-100. Still not working.
Length of the page. And our writing is right in the middle. If I scroll up or down, look at that. It's adjusting properly. Everything is centered.
It's not.
That's great. Now, don't worry if this takes you a long time to figure out. Sometimes it involves Googling around, figure things out. Like I said, later on in the CSS layout section of the course, I'll actually show you how to make this so much simpler.
Thanks.
Now, the last thing I want to do is, well, right here. I want to have a bit of space between the writing and the button. So what can we do here? I want another section in between these two to hopefully buffer them away from each other. So we can create that fairly easily. We can just add a new div, and we'll give it a class here of buffer that we'll have to write ourselves. And this buffer class will be in between the header and then the horizontal line and the button. Okay. So let's also give this a column of 12 because we want to make sure that it covers the entire area.
Yeah.
But right now, there's nothing.
Nope.
If I right-click here and inspect,
what you gonna
you'll see here that I have the buffer, but the buffer doesn't have anything.
Right.
It's completely empty because, well, there's nothing inside here.
Nothing to be in. Yeah.
But we can add a style, let's say dot buffer, and this buffer will have a height of, what should we say? Well, if I do, let's say 50 pixels and I refresh, look at that. I get a nice little buffer. So now if I scroll over to buffer, you see that I have a 50 pixel height buffer. But I always like using REM instead of pixels. So let's do REM. Let's see what 5 REM means. All right, that's good. Maybe a little bit more. Let's do 10 REM. Let's save and refresh. All right, that looks actually quite nice. If I close this tab, open it up. Yeah, look at that. That looks really, really nice. And there we go. We have our startup landing page right here. Everything looks pretty nice, right? And the way we've organized things seems pretty clean. Our button is, well, when we hover, available, but whenever I click on this button, nothing's happening. Ideally, we have a new page that opens up so that we can enter, or our customers can enter their emails. And this is the exciting part that we're going to get to in the next video.
Oh, baby.
I'll see you in that one.
I'd love to find out why. Why this fellow index. Let's pull his index out. La da 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 da. Boom. He's got another file attached. New folder index. So no, I don't want that. I want this open. Document type HTML. I'm closing your header. Class equals container d-flex. Is that what the problem is? That I had a dot rather than a dash. That oh! Oh! No! Why? That's funny. That is funny. Okay, that's it. The landing page 5. We're going to move on to add an email subscribe form with MailChimp. Uh, in the meantime, I'm going to clean this up a little bit as far as my text and whatnot. And I'm going to leave it at that. My fiance is reaching out to me for lunch, so we're going to go eat. I'll be back with another one of these as I continue. I'm just going to leave this as is, and hopefully Andre is okay with his audio being out there. If he's not, just let me know, Andre, and I'll cut it out. Thanks.